Welcome to Love in Life, a guide to a positive mindset. My aim is to show you that the key to a happier and more positive mind is to love the life you have. We will look at tips and tools you can use to improve your mindset, and the best thing is, we'll all be on this journey together. Hello, and welcome to Love in Life. If you're a regular listener, then welcome back. I'm so glad you've come back. If you're a new listener, then hey. I don't normally speak like that. Oh, that's my crystals clanging in my bra. Sorry. What's going on? If you saw my, let me just get them out. If you saw my Instagram or Facebook posts this week, then I've been to the crystal shop and I've bought myself a couple of new crystals, but there's two that I'm using with me today. One of them is my aquamarine tumblestone, and the other one is blue lace, and I've always said this wrong. I've just researched how to actually say this. I thought it was agate, but it's actually agate. So blue lace agate. And funnily enough, obviously I'm struggling to speak today, but blue lace agate is supposed to work with your throat chakra to help you communicate, to help you verbalize. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how we go on. I've literally sat here with my blue lace agate on my throat, literally sat on my throat, and that's what's just dropped down. And the other one, I'm sat with my aquamarine, I'm sat with in my bra. So as it's held near my heart, if that makes sense. So there's nothing weird in it. I'm literally just holding it there so it's close to my heart. And the reason why I want it close to my heart is because it's linked with the heart chakra, and it apparently helps you support others on their healing journey, encouraging compassion. So obviously that makes sense why I would want to wear that when I'm recording my podcast. I'm also going to start wearing it when I'm doing belief coding sessions. I've obviously already got some crystals that I use in my sessions, and I've just got a couple more to add to it. Anyway, I hope you've had a good week. We are currently halfway through September already, and well, bring it on, because I bloody love it. Now, yesterday I ended up having a little bit of an off day, a bit of a rest day, and the reason for this is, I got up absolutely fine. I did my usual morning routine, and I even put on some my high vibe playlist, and did some high vibe movements. I then did yoga. Then I had somebody cancelled on me, which they had very good reason to cancel on me, and that's absolutely fine. But for some reason, it made me feel really negative. And then I just couldn't snap myself out of it. And I tried, I thought, come on, snap out of it, get on with it. And then I realised that what I was doing was trying to force myself through a situation when actually what I needed to do was feel into it. And then I realised I'm probably hormonal as well. So even more reason for me to sit with it, to calm, to chill, and to engage with my feminine energy. And that is what we're going to talk about today, is divine feminine energy. And I've briefly spoken about this before. I've certainly spoken about masculine and feminine energies when I've talked about universal laws before, because you've got the law of polarity. And we all have aspects of feminine and masculine energies. However, and I am going to be talking more directly to women today, because most of my audience is women. But if you're not a woman, then please don't feel the need to switch off, because like I said, we all have aspects of feminine and masculine energy, and it's really important that we learn to embrace a good balance of both. Not necessarily 50-50 balance, but we need to learn where we are aligned and when we're not aligned with our energies. But as women, it's really important for our health that we connect with our feminine energy, our divine feminine energy. Two of the key traits of divine feminine energy are restoration and renewal. And if you think about our hormonal cycles, our periods, even when it comes to the whole life cycle, so puberty, then menstruation, then menopause, that is all a cycle as well. And it's cycles within a cycle, if that makes sense. So because of these physical aspects of cycle within our monthly cycles or within our cycles of life, it's really important to listen to our bodies and our hormones and our emotions to know when we need to slow down, when we need to restore, and when we need to renew. So that was what I did yesterday. And as I said, initially, my first reaction was to think to myself, come on, pull yourself together. Why can I not focus? Why am I allowing myself? Why am I finding it hard to get on and do what I've got to do? And that was when I realised that the way I was feeling was a very masculine energy. And at this point, I do think it's important to say there's nothing wrong with masculine energy. Like I said, we all need a certain balance of masculine and feminine energy. But you need to know when is the right time to use that masculine and feminine energy, especially when it comes to health. Sometimes feminine and masculine energy can become mistaken with gender roles. And obviously gender roles differ between generations, between communities, between countries and cultures, and more specifically, individual circumstances. Now, traditional or usual masculine energy traits are things like strength, having focus and clarity, using logic, protection, control, drive, strategy, all things like that, where it's very driven. That is very masculine energy. And because of things like gender pay gap and the fact that, you know, most of the big roles within companies are filled by men. And this has driven women, and this has obviously gone on for a long, long time. This has driven women, and it's now conditioned that we must think in a more masculine way. We must have a more masculine energy. And that's fine, but this sometimes means that our feminine energy becomes misaligned. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read out a few examples of divine feminine energy traits. And what I want you to do is when you listen to each one, just have a little think and just be honest with yourself on where you think you are misaligned or where you think you are lacking. So, restoration, renewal, creation and birth. And that doesn't necessarily mean giving birth. Healing, openness, nurturing, love, understanding, compassion, intuition, forgiveness, connection, harmony, surrender, receptive, not needing to control, and flow. Now, some of these traits will already be healed and aligned, but just by figuring out which of the traits you're not aligned with will just help you overall become more aligned with your feminine energy. And there are a few things we can do. Well, there's lots of things we can do, but I'm going to give you a few ideas, things that we can do. And I say we because this is me as well. You know, we all have to be aware of where our feminine energy is out of line or misaligned, shall we say. And I have got 8 ways, I think I've counted it as 8 that I've jotted down, 8 ways that we can do this. Now, the first thing we can do is to embrace our creativity. And creativity isn't just about art. Creativity is about creating something new, or just creating something in general. So obviously, art is one of those things. We can take part in artistic activities, whether that's painting, drawing, going to one of those like ceramic, where you can do like paint a cup and things like that. But we can also dance, we can also write, we can also sing. We can also be creative in the kitchen or in the home, whether that's decorating or redesigning. Creative in the bedroom even. Being creative is a great way to connect with our feminine energy. The second thing I've got written down is to connect with similar-minded women. Because openness and connection are a huge part of feminine energy. And by putting yourself in things like coaching groups, community groups on Facebook or what have you, or physical community groups, a yoga class or a meditation group, but by putting ourselves in these environments, our natural ability to show compassion and support is a great way of embracing this openness and connection. And I should add here, actually, I said with similar-minded women, but also, with men as well, because it's equally as important to embrace masculine aspects as well. And not only that, but it's important for males, to embrace their feminine energy, aspects of their feminine energy. This part of the feminine energy is all about, like I said, connection. It's about the collective. It's about embracing others' differences. Number 3 I've got written down is to learn to trust your intuition. And this can be easier said than done. This takes time, this takes practice, and this takes sometimes getting it wrong and learning from your mistakes. And how do we learn to trust our intuition? Well, it's by listening to that gut feeling. It's listening to that internal voice, that initial reaction you have when something comes up or when someone new comes into your life. And sometimes we do get this wrong. Like sometimes, like I said, it is important to learn how to do this. And we can only learn by making mistakes. So, yeah. It's fine if you make mistakes. It's fine if you learn how to use your intuition by making the wrong mistakes when you thought you were using your intuition, when actually you were listening to your emotions. Now, that was another thing I was going to say, is not to get intuition confused with emotions, because emotions, as I've spoken about recently, emotions are affected by unhealed traumas. And often when an emotion is triggered, it's because of a trauma that's happened in our past. And sometimes, because emotions are so strong, it's easier to listen to our emotions than our intuition. So that is why it's really important to know the difference. Emotions can quite often override our intuition, and because they bring out physical symptoms in us. Like if you are triggered by something that's happened in your past and it brings out an emotion in you, then quite often you get a feeling of sickness or dizziness. And when those things are present, it's really hard to listen to your intuition. So it's knowing the difference between the two. Does that make sense? Number 4, if you are the kind of person that thinks in a very logical way and in a very strategic way, then this might be a sign that you are thinking in a more masculine way. So a good thing we can do here is to reverse those things or flip those things. What's the opposite of logic and strategy? In my opinion, the opposite is not needing to control and letting things go with the flow. And obviously, again, this is easier said than done if your natural way of thinking is very logical. And this is, again, something else that we've been conditioned to do, or we've trained ourselves to do, to become successful, whether that's in business or in, whatever your life goals are. We've trained ourselves to become logical thinkers and to strategize everything. But sometimes just taking the foot off the accelerator just helps you flow that little bit better. And trust, again, comes back to trusting your intuition, trusting in the universe, trusting in the divine. Being open, again, comes back to openness, being open to an alternative outcome, one that you haven't had to control quite so much because you've let it happen in a more natural state. Does that make sense? Number 5 is being more receptive. Do you quite often find that when somebody pays you a compliment, that you find a way to shut it down, that you find a way to say, I don't know, let's just say somebody said they like your outfit, and your natural response is to say something like, oh, I've had this for years. It's the lack of receptiveness to receive. And that's not just receiving compliments. It can be receiving gifts from people, or if your friend wants to buy your coffee for you or your breakfast for you, and you naturally feel guilty for letting them pay for it. And being receptive isn't just necessarily about receiving. It's also about the ability to be open. And let me ask you a question. Do you find yourself shutting people out? Shutting people out if you don't agree with them, or if they have a different way of life to you and you are unable to connect with them. Like closing the door and just moving on is a very masculine energy. And don't get me wrong, sometimes there is a call for this. There are times when this trait is not a bad thing. But there are also times when we find it easier to just close the door rather than be open to people's apologies and being open to forgiveness. Like I said, there is a time for this, and obviously there are situations when I say run for the fucking hills. But it's just, again, I guess it comes back to intuition, like knowing what's right and wrong for you. Is it for your higher good that you run for the hills, or is it for your higher good that actually you realise that there is a place for forgiveness with certain situations? Like, people do make mistakes. Obviously, if you find yourself in a toxic situation, my answer is always run for the hills. But I think even then, you can still, depending on the situation, I can't be very careful here, but depending on the situation, there's still an aspect of understanding and forgiveness, which then helps you move on from that situation. Which actually leads me nicely onto number 6, which is forgiveness, compassion, and love towards others and yourself, ourselves. And by forgiveness, I certainly do not mean lowering your boundaries and allowing things to happen to you again. What I mean is disempowering the person who you need to forgive, disempowering them from having that control over your emotions and over your life. Showing compassion for yourself, showing love for yourself and others. And actually, sometimes it takes help from through therapy or counselling or coaching in order to be able to do this, but use people around you to be able to support you to do this. But coming at things from a loving angle without lowering your boundaries, coming at yourself with a view of love, from a place of love, will require you to use your feminine energy, because it is a feminine energy. And if there's one thing that you can do to help you do this, it's to commit to one thing that you can do to show yourself how much you love yourself. So some form of self-care, whatever that means to you, commit to one thing that you can do on a regular basis to show yourself love. And this will massively help you realign with your feminine energy. Okay, number 7. Look at where you have resistance towards being female, if you're female. So whether that is resentment towards having periods, towards menopause, towards motherhood, towards wearing makeup or dresses, towards sensuality. If you have resistance towards any of those things, then just make sure you look at why you have resistance towards those things. And that's not to say that you have to start wearing makeup, you have to start wearing dresses. But if you have a resistance, then just try and understand why. Same with periods. Why do you have negative emotions towards having a period? Have you been conditioned to think that it's dirty and that it's not okay to take a break and let your body rest and recover and rejuvenate? Like, just understanding why you have that resistance will help you embrace the divine feminine. Number 8. And this one is huge, in my opinion. But number 8 is self-worth. Having a lack of self-worth means that you probably find yourself trying to prove yourself, trying to change yourself, and both of those are masculine traits. So have a look at traumas which need healing around self-worth. And if right now you're thinking, I haven't really had any traumas, please go back and listen to last week's episode if you haven't heard that, because I've explained in last week's episode that Every single one of us has some kind of trauma. There are different kinds of trauma. So traumas that can be in this life, traumas from childhood, even generational trauma. And I will talk about this at a later date, but you can inherit other people's traumas. Traumas can get passed down from generation to generation through genetics. Being in a state of trauma or being constantly triggered by traumas keeps us in fight or flight mode. And fight or flight is very, very masculine in energy. It's the opposite of surrender and flow. Many of our traumas do come down to a lack of self-worth. And this is one thing that I'm certainly learning through belief coding, is so much of it does come down to lack of self-worth. So if you find yourself trying to prove yourself to others all the time, trying to change yourself, worrying about what people think about you, yes, I've got my hand up, all those things boil down to lack of self-worth. Don't try and run away from those feelings. Sit with those feelings and journal them out. Where do they come from? What needs healing? Ask for help. People that you know can help you. Whether that's friends and family, whether that's a therapist or a coach. Asking for help, receiving help, accepting help. They are all ways of embracing your feminine energy. A couple of things I just want to add onto the end of this. So just like anything, as with the law of polarity, there are good and healthy traits of feminine and masculine energy, and there are toxic traits of feminine and masculine energy. So going back to what I said about forgiveness, even that can be a toxic trait as well. Forgiving people too easily, lowering your boundaries, that can be a toxic trait of feminine energy. But then if we flip that by just cutting people off out of a way of protection, in extreme cases, that is also a toxic trait. Another point to note is to be careful with manifesting, because if you're too focused on the end goal, trying to control the situation or the outcome, this can use a lot of masculine energy. So just by going with the flow and being more open about the outcome will naturally engage more of a feminine energy. I really hope you've enjoyed learning more about the benefits of becoming more aligned with your feminine energy. And the thing is, like I've said, everybody's energy balances are going to be different. So for one person, you're going to be like 80% feminine energy and 20% masculine. And then another person might be 60-40. Like, we genuinely all have different requirements depending on our personality. But as long as there is balance, do you know what I mean? And it's really important to work out which balance works for you. And using your intuition will help you decide that. If you have enjoyed this episode today, then please do feel free to share it. If you can do this by whatever platform you listen on. If you click on the little sharey button, if you know what I mean, it's got like 2-3 dots and then the lines going through it. That will allow you to share it. You can either copy the link or you can directly share it to your Instagram stories if you feel that other people would benefit learning about feminine energy, the benefits of learning about divine feminine. Then please do share. And please do let me know what you thought of this episode. As always, feel free to DM me, send me an email. I'm lisa@lisadavidge.co.uk. My website is lisadavidge.co.uk. So feel free to check it out if you want to know how you can work with me. It's all on there. And I just want to say once again, thank you so much for all of your support recently and all the feedback I've been getting. I really do appreciate every single person who takes time to let me know what you think about the episodes. Anyway, that's me until next week. Have a fantastic week and I will speak to you next week. Bye.